Alright guys, so I wanted to show you a little bit about a streaming rig that I built recently. This is way overkill for what I used it for, but with everything kind of locked down and people not able to visit, we actually used this to stream a kid's birthday party. A very mobile child. So I wanted to show you a little bit about the setup that I built. Now this is using a lot of my larger equipment, so it's way overkill for what it was. It was actually streamed over Zoom, but something like this is great for streaming events. Being a kind of a remote camera operator that can move around for something, streaming, speeches, things like that. And also, if you're doing any kind of live streaming or something, and you've got a nice mirrorless or DSLR, kind of a scaled down version of this, something like that, can be really good. So we've got a small rig cage on an EOS RP with the 24-105 f4L IS lens on there. So this is my lens of choice for a lot of versatility as far as zooming and things. If you've got the budget for an RF wide angle, then have at it. You lose a little bit on the top end, you gain a lot more wide angle, but that's way overkill for a lot of this. But if you're going to do something really close up, or you need really good low light at a big, wide aperture or something, then that may be a route you want to go. But we've got the RP here with the 24-105 in this small rig cage. And then on that, we have a Rode VideoMic NTG. This pretty much stays on my video rigs all the time. It's an amazing shotgun microphone that has a lot of rear noise rejection, but it picks up really well from the front. If you want it to sound a little more realistic, or you could use a stereo microphone, something like that. Wireless mics and things. But again, this was supposed to be mobile, primarily handheld, following around a child, opening presents and things to show family. So very specific use case that this really worked well. It's on camera, it was, highly directional, and didn't pick up a lot of handling noise and things, so it worked really well for that use case. The main feature here that allowed a lot of this to be possible is the Camlink. So the Elgato Camlink 4K, USB, HDMI input, and this worked wonderfully. I used it with a MacBook Pro and used an HDMI 3.0 to USB-C adapter, and no dropouts, no missed frames. It just worked wonderfully. It showed up as a webcam, and so it just imported immediately into Zoom. And you can actually use multiple of these with your software if you're using an OBS, or if you're using even just something like Zoom. You can actually switch between multiple webcams, select your audio source as one and keep that as your audio feed, and then use the multiple webcams, multiple cam links even, and switch between those in the Zoom screen as far as screen sharing and things. So if you were to have a couple of these deployed and you were to have, say, a fixed camera and then maybe a mobile camera or something for a presentation that you're live streaming, you can actually have someone operating Zoom and switching between those two if you're doing it on that platform. Otherwise, you can use an OBS to switch between your screens and live stream that way. So the big thing with using a mirrorless like the EOS RP with streaming with a clean HDMI output. So we used this with the HDMI out set to clean. So there's nothing showing up on it as far as your audio meters. You don't have your exposure settings and all that showing up on your live stream feed. The downside to a clean screen is it turns off when you use the HDMI. You're turning off your internal screen. Like if you've got an external HDMI screen connected to something like the EOS RP, you lose all screen on it. You lose the EVF, you lose the rear screen, even as far as touch screen for settings and things. So what we have here is a FeelWorld F7 4K 7-inch battery-powered monitor in a small rig cage. So this takes the standard, like this is an F970 battery. This is a massive, massive battery for this use case. You do not need this, especially if you're only doing like a 45-minute, hour-long stream, something like that. If you're doing something fixed, you can of course use your computer monitor to frame your shots and it's going to stay put. But if you're doing something mobile and you want to run around aiming this rig, you need a battery-powered nice monitor to make sure that your focus is correct and that you're only showing what you want to show on this stream. So as far as your camera operator is concerned, you need a good external monitor. Not necessarily even this big. A smaller one, any one of the Atomos, anything like that is going to be wonderful for this. But this also has HDMI in and pass-through, which is major. And the reason that's major is because we are going to be using this HDMI pass-through to connect to the Camlink. So we are connecting using one of these hyper flexible mini HDMI to HDMI adapters, one of these cables from the EOS RP into the monitor. I am then using an HDMI cable out of the monitor to go to the Camlink. Depending on your distance, this is something that's gonna change. This is entirely use case dependent, and so I have this small little leader right here with a coupler on it. This enables me to easily bend and shape this cable and also gives a good disconnect point in case the cable pulls or something. I'm not going to drop a camera, I'm not going to rip the connector off of the monitor or anything like that. But since those connectors, stick off the side of the monitor, you really need something to be able to bend and flex a lot more than any HDMI cable that's going to go the distance that you need. So my preference for a lot of this is just a nice HDMI cable. This is about a 40-foot HDMI cable. This is a passive HDMI cable, not an active, and it connects right in to the Camlink, and it connects on the other end into this little coupler to get our video feed. So this is wonderful if you've got something, especially that's not moving around a whole lot, where you don't have a ton of distance between the camera and between your Camlink or like your streaming computer. So this is a fairly flexible cable, but it's still a very large HDMI cable. And if you've got to go more than about 40 feet or so, you're going to start running into issues with that. HDMI does not like distance, and the bigger the distance you go, you may find cables, but you're going to start getting into active cables, and you're going to start getting into very, very large, non-flexible cables that no one wants to haul around as a camera operator. So that's where something like one of these comes in. Now, this is an HD-Base-T extender. And so you're usually using this with a couple of these, either transceivers or a transmitter and receiver. And this enables me to send an HDMI signal, including the audio from the camera, anything that go over that HDMI port, over Ethernet. The cable, not the standard. So this is not going to go over your network. This is a point-to-point. You're going to connect a standard Ethernet cable into this, and then you're going to connect it all the way over to your receiver that's going to connect into your Camlink. So the neat thing with these is a lot of these can take a 5-volt barrel plug input. So if you've got a barrel plug to USB cable like this, you can use, given that these use about 2 amps of current draw, you can use a standard battery bank, like a USB phone charger battery bank, generally kind of a medium to larger one. It's not going to be any of the little small pencil ones. But you can use that to power this for your cameraman, and then you can get a fairly smaller gauge Ethernet cable, and that's going to be a lot more flexible. You get the stranded ones, it's going to be able to travel a lot longer distance. This can travel about 330 feet. 330 feet is going to be good enough for most venues, most things that you're going to be doing like this. If you're live streaming a wedding or something with this, that's going to be good. But again, this adds another point of failure. So I don't use something like this unless I really need that distance. Of course, you can also do something like an SDI converter, but then you've got to convert it back from SDI to use the Camlink. Or if you start getting up into those levels of things, you're probably not going to be using a Camlink. You're going to be using something that can take an SDI input and show up as a different format even. I like the Camlink because it's cut and dried. It shows up as a webcam, and we don't have to worry about it. It takes an HDMI input from anything I want to throw at it. So if I've got this just on a desk over a monitor or something aimed at me doing a live stream, it's a short HDMI cable. It connects into here. I don't need the external monitor because I can use my monitors to make sure the shot's framed correctly, and that's it. I don't have to mess with all that. So a lot of this stuff is primarily for if you are doing a remote camera operator that's going to be moving around with this. The other option is something like a Hollyland, like wireless HDMI system. Again, you want to make sure your latency is very low. So this is not your standard Blu-ray to projector kind of wireless HDMI. You want something that's rated for even pulling focus and things like that, especially if you're doing multiple cameras, because if you've got multiple and they're out of sync with each other, it's going to end up being a little bit weird when you switch back to one and you've got that little latency gap or something. So you want a high-end one of those. The problem with those is, again, multiple points of failure, wireless, and now you're starting to get into hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to transmit the HDMI. So while the whole thing's battery powered and you don't have a tether anymore, you've got a lot of money in the rig just to stream something on Zoom or, whatever your platform is. So this is not for everybody. This rig is also extraordinarily heavy. It is a great tripod mountable rig, but that kind of defeats the purpose with a lot of it. So I'm using one of these small rig arms, one of these magic arms, and this has the RE locating pins to make sure that I am not going to have my monitor end up tipping or something like that. So we've got the RE locating pins on this small rig cage, and so we can lock this down. And then we are using the HDMI, this little mini HDMI cable, and it goes right into here. Shorter one of these would also work out quite well. And then into your HDMI. And what I usually use for this, I don't have it with me here, but I have just one of the little cable clamps that goes into a 1/4 20, and it allows me to take these and clamp them like to the bottom of the monitor or to the cage so that I don't have any pull on these connectors or anything like that. These batteries, again, as I said, could be smaller. You don't need such a large battery. It's only going to make this rig way more. Way more. So, as you can see here, we'll take this off the tripod. So, this ridiculous contraption here is quite heavy. It is very unbalanced. Not even something you're gonna stick on a gimbal or something like that, but it works wonderfully. So with this, you can output 4K signal. You can get really clean 1080. Whatever you're gonna do with it, it's gonna be way better than a webcam, but at a much higher cost. So again, this is not something I recommend going out and getting this gear to, you know, do better web chats with your office or something. This is if you've got kind of semi-pro, amateur like video gear, something like that, or if you're doing events, if you're a company that is wanting to do more lectures and things, or to have talks that are broadcast with multiple camera angles, things like that are, and doing your presentations, and you want a higher end video, you want really good audio with external audio sources, something like this, you can even have this done with a lavalier mic, and you can send that to one of the cameras or to an external input on a audio interface for your computer. You select that as your source, and you can have all of your lav mics, your external cameras, and this is going to be limited only by the bitrate and the resolution of your platform, such as Zoom or a Facebook or YouTube live stream, anything like that. That's going to be your limiting factor, not this equipment. So the other big issue with something like the EOS RP is when I run a clean output, it's not letting me record internal to the camera. It is recording in the software such as Zoom when it records the entire event. That can be a problem if you're wanting to record a live event and do it later, post it back on something, and you want the best quality. The file size is way too small on something like a Zoom recorded call. It's heavily compressed, and for a lot of things like that, other than your lighting and stuff, you may as well use a webcam. So you may want an external recorder, which is, again, if you've got an Atomos or something monitor, that's where that's going to come in really handy. If you've got a recording monitor that's your HDMI and your HDMI pass-through, you're recording it all locally, but that's only going to record this camera's feed. So if you're using multiple cameras, you're going to have to record it internal to the computer, and you're going to have to use a software other than what your platform is. Now, if you're streaming something to YouTube, something like that, you're going to get whatever that platform's capable of recording, and that's going to be a lot higher usually than like a Zoom call. It's going to be pretty much whatever quality people are seeing for your stream on YouTube. That's what it's going to be recorded back, and if that's your platform of choice, and that's what you're going to be keeping the video on for people to watch later, that's probably fine, and it's going to save you a lot of money in equipment as far as recording. So all of this to say, it was a great trial. It worked out really well. It's very heavy, but everybody got to see, and the big benefit with things like this is, of course, you've got good glass, good for low light. You're not running around with video lights everywhere, and you've got IS in the lens, in some cases IS in the body, and so you've got nice stable footage as far as shaking. If you're not using a gimbal, of course, you may make people seasick, but there's nothing you can do about that short of even more gear. So if you've got equipment like this, something like a Camlink 4K, honestly, I generally keep one of these in my camera bag with all of this. I could go somewhere, set this up on a small tripod, short HDMI cable to the Camlink and a laptop, and I'm going to have one of the best video qualities for doing a stream from pretty much wherever I am, wherever I can get internet connection. You know, I can live stream with this setup. So the only limitation is going to be how you're getting the footage from the camera into your computer as to the distance that you can be from your recording computer. So that's really the high variability here, and everything else is just something that's configurable. So overall, it worked out super well. We really loved having it. I would not buy it specifically for this purpose, but if you've got the equipment laying around for doing other videos, doing photography and things, just know there are other methods other than like a USB tether directly to the camera or something like that that could be a bit higher quality and allow you a little bit more versatility at the cost of, well, maybe your back. But if you've got a tripod, use that. That's it for me, guys. I will see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, and we got more videos to come. Thanks.